Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check today's video out, because we're going to be talking about what is the most common bass fishing mistake I see most anglers making, and the ones I've seen most of the co-anglers that I fish with make, most of just my friends I fish with, and even some anglers you consider pretty good. It's an easy fix for this, so we're going to get into that today's video. Also guys, quick invitation, I'd just like to invite everybody to please consider hitting that subscribe button here at Intuitive Angling. Free and easy to do so, and if you want to go to the next level and become a channel member, you can do that by going to my homepage and click the join button for information. Channel members get extra private videos every week that are not seen by the public, so if you're interested in that, you can check that out. Really appreciate that. Okay, how many guys can guess what it is? The most common mistake I see people making. It is fishing with the wrong size of fishing line, the wrong pound test. And what I want to do in today's video is I sort of want to give you guys a sort of a foundational, bits of some piece of advice on how to choose the right size of fishing line depending upon what you need to get out of it, the lure category and the type of cover you're fishing. Because there's a lot to it. It's not just as simple. There's not like a guide that you can go by. So I'm going to sort of give you guys my advice on it from my own opinion that's helped me out in my fishing. And also guys, if you guys are interested in some line, I'll put my Seaguar InvizX fluorocarbon line link in the description. This is the line I use all the time. I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link if you guys are wanting to try some of the Seaguar InvizX. Really good line there. Been using it for, man, close to 20 years. Okay, what do you want to try to accomplish? You have to, excuse me guys, I'm getting over a flu or something. I probably sound a little hoarse here. There's a lot of considerations when you try to determine which size of line you're using. Now let's take, for example, if you're fishing with a crankbait or something. Depending upon the situation and what you want to accomplish out of that crankbait, like this crankbait right here, this is like a medium diver. It probably runs down to 8 or 9 foot like that. If you throw it like on the recommended 12-pound test line, that may be recommended for it, but there's a lot of other pound tests that you can throw on it depending upon what you're wanting to do at it. Let's say, for example, I'm wanting to get this bait down as deep as I possibly can get it. And maybe I'm casting parallel to a rocky bank and the water's pretty clear, so I want to get this bait down extra deep. I may throw it on 6-pound test fluorocarbon. I'll put it on a spinning rod with 6-pound test fluorocarbon and just fire it out there a mile. And I'll probably, if I put it on 6-pound test fluorocarbon versus the 12-pound test fluorocarbon that's recommended, I'll probably get another 3 to 4 foot of depth out of it with a 6-pound line. So that's one consideration. Now let's say, for example, the water's dirty and you're fishing rocky banks and your water visibility is like this, and you've got a lot of gnarly rocky riprap cover. I may put the thing on 20-pound test line, because in that dirty water I don't want it to get deep. I don't need it to get deep because those fish are going to be shallow, so I can go up in my line size test, a 20-pound test, and have the confidence that I'm not going to break off or get my line frayed or anything. So, and then everything between that, like between 6 and 20-pound test line, that's all relative to the condition that you're fishing. So that's one lure with that. Same situation with like a jerkbait. If you're fishing a jerkbait, a lot of people, like with the Megabass Vision 110, it's like 10 to 12-pound testers are go-to. And again, the problem with 10 to 12-pound tests on a jerkbait is you're going to be limited to the depth range that you can get down. So it's the same with the jerkbait. Any type of a lure that has a bill on it is going to be limited by the recommended line size. So on the jerkbait, I can do the same thing. I can go to 6-pound line or 20-pound line, keep it shallower, go deeper with the 6-pound line. So just remember that on all your lipped lures, the depth that you attain with that lip lure is going to be relative to the line size and the line size diameter that you use. Also with that, you're going to get more depth out of fluorocarbon line simply because it sinks at smaller diameter than mono. So I highly recommend the fluorocarbon. Now let's talk about a slow bait. Say you're fishing a jig or a plastic worm, something on the bottom that does not have a lip on it. Now this, as far as the line test that you want to accomplish on a jig or Texas worm, a Texas rig, it depends on 2 factors. It depends on the water clarity and the type of cover that you're fishing. And one other thing, it also depends on the diameter of the hook you're using. Say for example, on my Blaukat throwback jig here, relative to a lot of hooks, it's got a fairly large diameter, stiff flipping type hook in it. So obviously on a bait like this, with a stiffer hook, I'm not going to be able to use light line effectively like that. So I'm going to be using like at least 15 to 17 pound test line on the jig like this, on up to 20 to 25 pound tests, depending upon the cover. Let's say, for example, I'm fishing rocky banks, with my jig here, bluff banks, water's pretty clear, 5 to 6 foot of visibility. I'd probably put it on 15 pound test line. But if I was flipping flooded bushes, flooded grass, maybe flipping lily pads with it, flipping boat docks, I'd probably put it on 25 pound test line because, in that situation, shallower water, I need that extra pound test, for the thick cover, not to break me off. Same with the plastic worm with that. Plastic worm's a little bit different because the fall on a plastic worm is a little bit more of a pendulum down like this. The jig tends to fall a little bit more vertical. So most of the time I'm using a little bit lighter line with the plastic worm. Just seems like you can get a little bit better feel on it. And also it's relative to the size and the profile of the bait you're using. If you're using a 4-inch plastic worm, obviously you want to use a little bit lighter line than if you're using like a 10-inch old monster. Or if I'm fishing like, some type of little finesse jig versus the full-size jig, I may want to go down a little bit lighter line with that. But the main thing that you have to do, it's not necessarily thinking in terms of wanting to use heavier or lighter line. It's using the best line or the best pound test line for the specific situation you're in. And again, that has to do with the water visibility. It has to do with the depth you're fishing around. It has to do with the type of cover you're fishing around. And you want to try to have a balance between not hurting the action or having the fish see the line versus the efficiency of getting the fish in the boat. Now, one thing about it is you will get more bites with lighter line. There's a big difference. If I have a finesse jig tied on 6 pound test line and then I have a finesse jig tied on 25 pound test line, if I'm fishing like an open water bank with that, I'm going to get more bites with the 6 pound line. Even though fluorocarbon is pretty much invisible, it's still a little bit visible. So, in a situation like that, I want to balance, I want to be able to get the fish in based upon the cover, yet I don't want it to take away the bites that I have. Now, one thing you will find is if you are penetrating cover, let's say, for example, you're flipping your bait into a lay down tree, or you're flipping your bait into, a flooded bush or something like that, you can get away with heavier line in a situation like that. Anytime your bait is hanging over a limb, it doesn't affect the strike that much as if it's just over in open water. Prime examples like if you're fishing a Ned rig. Now you can imagine the difference between how many bites you'll get with 6 pound tests versus 20 pound tests. And another thing that you have to realize about line tests is the line tests will slow the fall of the bait. The heavier the line you're using, there's more drag in it, so it's going to reduce the amount of fall that you have. So if you're fishing a 1/2 ounce jig with 25 pound test line versus 15 pound test line, you're going to have a significant difference in how fast or how slow that jig falls based upon the pound test. So one of the things I probably, as far as from my observation, I see people probably using too light a line most of the time. This is especially when they're pitching and flipping. A lot of guys that I've been fishing with, guys, I see them using like 12 pound test line to flip with. You don't want to do that. If I could, like I said, the overview of it, from all the experience I've had with people, most people fish with line tests that's 3 to 5 pound test too light most of the time. So anyway, it's just a balance. You just sort of have to figure it out as a feel. Analyze the cover, analyze the water visibility, everything around it, then make your determination. And also, sometimes if you have a bait like a jerk bait, the pound test line is going to affect your action a little bit. You're going to get more action out of lighter line on a bait like a jerk bait than you will on heavier line. So it's just a lot of different considerations with it. So hope it helps you guys out. We'll see you.